Hi everyone, welcome back to my quilt room. Today we are going to do the second part of our Cuckoo's Nest block, where I show you how to put the batting and the backing on it and to make it a Quilt As You Go block, and then I'm going to show you how to sash the blocks together. So let's get started. When we left off, I had put all my blocks up on my design wall and just sort of matched them together. I only have two up here right now because I put them in a little wall hanging that I'm going to show you later how it all came together. So I have a couple up here right now. So let's put one of these together. So I'm just going to take these down and we're going to sew these. And so you want to first sew the two at the top together, then sew the two at the bottom together, and then you're going to sew the top to the bottom. So let me show you how we're going to do that. Okay, so we have our two blocks and we're going to sew the first row up top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically put these together. I'm going to nest my seams. Now we do have two nested seams in this, so we're going to nest those seams. And when we first put the blocks together, I sewed all my seams in the same direction. So because you're not going to really know what you're going to pair it up with. So some of the seams are going the same way. So basically I'm just going to take the seam, push it over, because I can iron the rest when I come back, and then just join them together like this, pushing them up against each other. And then I'm going to clip it. Same with this one. These are both going the same way, so I'm just going to push that over, nest that together, making sure they butt up against each other. Okay, and I'm going to clip that one. And then making sure everything else meets. Okay, so that one's sewn down. And before I iron that, I'm just going to sew this one down real quick. Again, we're going to nest those seams. Pushing the one side over, since they're both going the same way. Making sure they fit. Okay. Okay, they fit right in there. And then I'm going to sew this one down. Okay, so now we're going to sew this half to this half. I'm going to nest that middle seam first. Make sure that's right up against each other. And then I'm going to attach the others. Okay. And the next one. Okay, now I'm going to sew that 1/4 inch all the way down. Okay, so now I have them all sewn down. And I forgot to show you how to nest these last two, but we all know how to do that. Let me just iron this real quick. Okay. So now we're going to turn this into a Quilt As You Go block. We now have our top, and now we're going to put this with our batting and our backing. And then I'm going to show you how to sash them together. So let me put that aside. Let me grab my batting and my backing. So now I usually always cut my batting and backing slightly larger than my block, just so we can allow for any kind of slippage or shrinkage when it's sewn up. You know, it does shrink a little bit, slightly, but not a lot. Okay, I'm going to line this up. And what I usually do is, because it's such a larger block, I'm going to put some basting spray on this, just so it doesn't move. Not a lot. I just do like one stream of it. That's just plenty to hold it together. Just make sure it's smooth. And now I'll put my block on top. And you can see this is a good sizable block. So now we want to sew this all together. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch in the ditch. Now you could do this a number of ways. You can go, you know, make a big X. You can, what I'm going to do is stitch in the ditch around the blocks, or I'm going to go straight down, straight across, and then I'm probably going to do this outer block at least. So I'm going to take this to the machine, sew that down, and then I'll show you when I'm finished. So I've switched out my foot on my machine to a foot that does stitch in the ditch. And it's got a metal bar here, so I just run that right along my seam, and it stitches right inside. So I'm going to just start at the top. And then just follow that stitch line, or the seam line really. Now I'm going to turn it around and go the opposite direction. And as I'm doing this, I'm just sort of just making sure that it's separated, you know, each side is separated a little bit so that it follows that line. But you don't want to push too hard. Okay, so now I just went down one side and across the other. And I'm just going to do a little bit more around the outer box. So now we have it all stitched in the ditch, and now it's all one complete block. And that's our Quilt As You Go block. And you can see the back where I stitched. Hopefully you saw that. Let me just flip that again. Okay, now I'm going to trim this up, and then we're going to sash these two blocks together. So I'll be right back while I get my supplies for that. Okay, so we have our 2 blocks all squared up, and then I have my sashing and my the back sashing and the front sashing. So now for the front, or the back, I'm sorry, for the back sashing, we're going to do a 1-inch strip. And then for the front sashing, I did a, let me iron this real quick. I did a 2 and, I did a 1.5 because I wanted a thin sashing for my front. So I did a 1.5, and I'm just going to fold this in half and iron this down. Okay, so now how we're going to join these is, let's get this one out of the way because we're just going to work on this first one. We're going to put our 1-inch right sides together on the back. And I'm going to just clip this. And that little black speck is just a pen mark, so I knew which side I was going to work on. And now it's gone. Okay, so we have the back one on. Now we're going to take our front and we are going to line that up. Okay, let's just check, make sure the back did not move. It did not. And then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way down. So I'll be right back while I do that. All right, so we have that sewn down. There's the front and the back. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press that back out so it lays nicely. And then we're going to take our other one back to back, and we're going to line up this top of this sashing with the top of our block. And I want to try to make sure that my middle meets up. It's a little hard to see, but you can generally get it. And I just kind of check on the inside just to make sure. There we go. Okay, now we're going to sew this 1/4 inch down. Okay, so now we have our back sewn down. And the edges should meet exactly, which they do. And now I'm going to just iron that real quick, just to make it, just to flatten it out a little bit. And now the front one has to be, oops, flipped over. And the reason I did this shorter than normal is because I wanted a small sashing between them, because I felt like it just didn't warrant for a really thick one. So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to iron that down just so it's easier to handle. I'll flip this over. And you can make this any width you want. Generally, I do a 2-inch folded in half, but this time I did a 1.5. So, you know, you can alter that according to the look you want. So now what I'm going to do is, turn this, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my basting glue and I'm just going to line this up and baste along the edge, and then fold that over, hold it down for a second. What it's going to do is I'm going to line it up with this stitch mark. So when I sew it, I'm going to pretty much hit that stitch mark. And this glue really holds. I'm also going to iron it after, so that'll really stick. And I'm just hitting that stitch line. Oops. Okay. So that's that. And then I'm going to iron this real quick. Okay, and then I'm going to, when I sew it now, I'm just going to sew right on the edge there, and that should cover that stitch line right there. So now that's all sewn down. There's the front, and then there's the back. And then for the binding, you would just bind this up. And we've done that before in my other videos, but I'll run it through real quick. I did a 2 1/4 inch strip, again, because I wanted mine to be a little thinner. I usually do it 2 1/2. Sometimes 2 1/4 for others too, but you would go to the back, line this up on the raw edges, sew 1/4 inch, and then flip that to the front. Of course, this is, you know, a little messy, but to the front, and then top stitch that all the way down. Okay, I hope that made sense. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope that that was helpful on how to put the Cuckoo's Nest blocks together and how to make them into a Quilt As You Go block. And here's the finished product over here. Here are 4 big blocks sewn together. Here's the 4 small ones, and then I sashed and binded 4 big ones. And I just made a kind of a small wall hanging because I'm using the other blocks for something else. And then here's the back. It's an all white, same as the sashing. And again, I did a small sashing because I just wanted just a little pop of the white, because these blocks just felt so busy to me that I felt like that broke them apart. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you make yourself one, because they really are a lot of fun. And if you found this video helpful, I hope you subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and come back for my next one. And so in the meantime, happy sewing and sew something happy.